per grade, and it's going to turn out to be 3 or 4 per classroom, as you'll see in a minute. And as you know, then the high school kids under your system are sent to receiving districts in other communities, and you pay tuition depending on which of the sending districts they're going to. All right, let's go back. Let's go back to the multiplier. How did I get to 127 new public school-age children? Well, here is the breakdown of the Sylvan project with a lot more detail. Start with the townhouses at the top. The townhouses, I'm assuming, are averaging 3 bedrooms. The multiplier for a townhouse with that high-income resident is going to be in there. According to the American Community Survey data, is 0.378 students per unit. If you go across the page to the column in the middle called all PSACs, this is getting a little dorky, I know. PSACs is public school-age children. That means the townhouses are expected to generate 36 new students, and those 36 students are going to go to the 3 levels to the right. 28 of them are going to go to K through 5, 3 of them 6 through 8, and 4 of them to the high school level. You go down the page, you get to the rental apartments, market rate rents, and then you get to the affordable apartments, and you will see what you may not understand intuitively, which is that the difference between public school-age children, between a market rate apartment and an affordable apartment, is a material difference. So a market rate 2-bedroom apartment has a multiplier of 2.89. A 2-bedroom affordable apartment has a multiplier of 0.674. And that is largely the result of just the facts that come out of the census survey that indicate that higher income households tend to generate somewhat fewer public school-age children than somewhat lower income households. Now, I don't mean poor. I'm talking about the difference between a household that has an income of $200,000 a year versus a household in the same unit that has an income of $60,000. The $60,000 a year household across the census tracts that we looked at is going to generate a somewhat higher public school-age ratio. So that's where you get the numbers that add up to, at the bottom, in the middle there, 127 new public school-age students. For context, the next to the last line on that slide shows you current enrollment in your 2 buildings and your high school population. So you now have in K through 5, 334 kids. Guys are going on me. So the 78 kids coming into K through 8 would represent a 23% increase, just statistically, over your current enrollment. But we're going to get to a minute the question of what does that 23% increase really mean at the classroom level. Here's the brief fiscal analysis that I summarized a moment ago. Real estate tax revenues. The townhomes are going to have a market value, and I think this is conservative, of a little over between $1.3 million and $1.4 million. Your equalized ratio of taxation, as you know, is just under 95%. There's your total assessed value for the townhomes of about $123 million. The total real estate tax collection at your current tax rate would be, for the townhouses, $1,757,000. I've divided that to the right between the municipal share and the Board of Ed share. So the Board of Ed share in the orange, going all the way down the column, is $819,000 after you've gotten the taxes from the townhouses and all the rental apartments. And that turns out to be, at the very bottom, for the Board of Ed, approximately $6,600 per new public school-age children. All right, final quick analysis. What does all this mean for the classrooms? We were able to tap into the superintendent's database, very cooperative in giving us classroom sizes and grade level enrollment. A couple of basic things that go on in any public school over a period of time. if no new development occurs in any district, including Edgewood Cliffs, classroom sizes are going to fluctuate a little bit year after year. Classrooms are going to fluctuate a little bit in size year after year without any impact on residential development. So what I did here is look at a trend over 9 years of the enrollment, the actual enrollment in all 9 grade levels that you have now. And what you see is some fluctuation. I'll show you a chart in a minute, which may make it a little easier to understand. Here you go. The North Cliff School, over the last 9 years, had an enrollment that peaked about 5 years ago, and now it's slightly going down. Upper School enrollment peaked about 2 years ago, and seems to be sort of stable during that period, but it's a little lower now than it was 2 years ago. That's kind of a static analysis. Now, let's see what happens to the 127 kids, or actually the 98 kids. If you don't educate, you don't have buildings for the high school kids that are coming in. So for your 2 buildings that you have now, here are the class sizes. Let's start with North Cliff. You've got in North Cliff, take the first grade class A. Right now it has 18 kids in it. We estimate that the enrollment increase from the Sylvan project will be approximately 3 new kids. That'll bring the enrollment up to 21. We did the same thing for the other 2 classes of first grade. So you'll have a total first grade enrollment that goes from 53 to 64. Your median enrollment in that classroom over the last 9 years was 54 kids, but the peak enrollment prior to now, for the last 9 years, was actually 78. So there was a year, the last 9 years, when that first grade cohort had 78 kids in the class. Similarly with the second grade class. Enrollment's going to go up, according to the numbers, from 51 kids in all 3 classes to 62. But in the second grade, over the last 9 years, the second grade classes have had as many as a total of 77 children enrolled in. This continues it through the 5th grade. You see the same comparison. My conclusion is that the only 2 grades that it looks like the Sylvan enrollment may result in an increase above peak enrollments in the last 9 years are your 7th and 8th grade classes. I'll show you that number here. I take the 8th grade class at the bottom there, where your enrollments right now total 49 kids, plus the 11 from Sylvan, allocated sort of evenly. That puts the enrollment up to 60 in the 8th grade classes total. The peak enrollment in the 8th grade for the last 9 years has only been 49. So there's going to have to be some adjustment made, probably in the 7th grade and the 8th grade classes. But you're still looking at class sizes that are relatively consistent with the ups and the downs that you have experienced in those buildings over the last 8 years. So my conclusion is not just what the data is. My conclusion is that the enrollment increases, number one, will propose a challenge for management, for the Board of Ed, but based on the historical ups and downs that they have been able to manage in the last 9 years, as enrollments have gone up and gone down again. It's my opinion that these enrollment increases should not require the construction of any new buildings.
So I think that concludes everyone's presentations. Thank you, guys. Just really quick, as far as the council is concerned, does anyone want to say anything? No? Yeah.
Firstly, I just want to thank all the residents for coming out tonight. It's great to see so many people wanting to get knowledgeable on this topic. You know, I think the issue right now, they keep mentioning the risk assessment. I think we've already gone down the path with an MOU being signed. I don't think the risk assessment was really put in the hands of our residents. I think we've already gone too far down. I vehemently oppose building any multifamily residential units on 800 Sylvan. I live 8 homes from the corner of this project. Okay, we have another council member that lives 2 homes away from the corner of this project. I'm not sure why our views differ. The old TJ Lipton building, 800 Sylvan, was where I had my first job back in 1993. All the property north of Palisades Avenue in Engle Cliffs had always been corporate buildings. For our council to even consider to even consider settling to allow the building of apartments on 800 Sylvan is unpalatable to me. I think the numbers, I love numbers, and I thank our professionals for presenting these numbers. But we have residents that I firmly believe know how to evaluate those numbers. And when you're saying 127 school-age children are coming in, backing into $6,000 a student, I want everyone here to ask themselves, do you really truly believe 127 school-age students are going to come into those 400 units?
Mr. Wu, you have 2 kids in private school, so those are 2 kids that are no longer in the school district. I'm the only parent here that's
So let me just quickly poll the council. Councilman Song, do you support residential housing at 800 Sylvan? Yes or no?
We open up to the public, please. This is not a political campaign. This is a town meeting.
Where we stand.
I am going to speak after we let our residents speak.
Okay, that's fine.
Let's not
No answer from you.
You're making this
Councilwoman Park, do you support residential housing at 800 Sylvan? Yes or
Can
no?
we open up to the public, please, for
She's not
questioning?
answering.
This is not your political campaign.
Councilman Aversa, do you support residential housing at 800 Sylvan? Yes or no? You're not answering.
Mayor Bridget, point of order.
You support
No.
residential housing at 800 Sylvan?
Excuse me.
Yes or no?
Mayor Bridget, Mayor Bridget,
And I have a motion.
Mayor Bridget, I have the floor.
You don't have the floor, I haven't recognized.
Mayor Bridget, stop using this forum as your political campaign. If you have any solutions, I would like to hear them.
I gave you a solution. You approved my solution.
Is this a
It's
lecture
budget
or a
plan.
public meeting?
Okay, can I have a motion to open
Is
to the
this a
public?
public meeting? Let it be public.
Mr. Slater, we
Yes.
appreciate you yelling out of your seat, but you do that often. You could be called on and come up to the microphone, okay? Everyone talks large when they're down there. Get up to the microphone. Can I have a motion to open to the public, yes or no?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, here's the way it works. You raise your hand, and I welcome everyone to come up. When I call you, state your name and address at this microphone. And again, thank you so much for coming here tonight. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you for your patience. Okay, anyone who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. Yes, sir. You need to come here, state your name and address. Thank you.
David Mehta at 75 Roberts Road. I would like to start with, because there are so many... Okay.
That's okay.
Is that good?
Great, thank you.
There are so many numbers thrown out at us, and basically the speech was, this town, and basically we should just roll over as to why it would be good in our interest, and why it would be fantastic just to listen to these attorneys or those so-called experts. Number one, we just heard some numbers that, oh, how are we going to get $6,300 in taxes from this development? How much does it cost for a school tuition fees? In my opinion, I had seen something like $22,000. Maybe I'm wrong. So that, if that is correct number, then we would be about $16,000 short on each student coming into this. Number two, 127 students. I don't believe those numbers. And third, and once we open up this, in 6 years, no, there's no question. I'm going to ask questions, but I'm going to make it clear to the people that in 6 years, in 2025, according to my understanding from this law, we will again be subject to the same litigation by another developer on 9W Sylvan Avenue. And once we open the door, every building over there, a guy like Normandy will come in, will open up that, and basically will be subject to that. Normandy, when they came in and bought this, they knew exactly that they had this. This was not a zoning law brought up by Englewood Cliffs in response to with affordable housing or something. This has been in existence, as Mr. Wu said, that before he was born. Okay? I have come here, I've just moved recently. I have passed this area for the last 30 years or so. I've always seen this 9W as a commercial strip for offices. And I read into all these Supreme Court cases. So so-called 2001 Lauren Doctrine, third, fourth, maybe I am not a genius like you, but on floral, Supreme Court in 2013 said that whatever we decided 30 years ago is no longer good, no longer valid. As the time had changed, circumstances have changed, we don't need to have straitjacket. I have the printed case here, and they said that it needs to change. Number two, what are the current needs? We really need to meet the current needs. And by the time we would get this litigation done, if it goes into litigation, it will be 8 to 10 years. Laws change. Supreme Court itself is saying that no, and they invalidated certain things. It also said that what are the workers need for factory workers? Which factory do we have in this municipality? I don't recall of any factory, so that we need to create any needs for factory workers. What I see is companies like LG or companies like Unilever. So if we are talking of making some medium housing for those workers, I understand. But there are lots and lots of different things. And I would be happy to actually put an analysis together on this legal. I'm not a lawyer, but what I understand. And I would like to share it with the town people and not listen to all these experts the way they're saying.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, in the back. As he comes up, I'll just mention that we're the only state that does it this way. If it was such a great idea, the other 49 states should have followed us, but they didn't. They were much smarter than New
We don't live
Jersey.
in the other states.
May I ask?
You can state your name and address, please.
My name is Perry Kalajian, live at 374 Forest Drive, here in Englewood Cliffs. And I've lived here since 1962, so I've probably been here longer than most of the team. I don't want to relitigate the Mount Laurel decisions, whether they're right or wrong. We all have to live with it. I understand that. What I did here, and I want to thank all the presenters here for displaying their talents, is that for the last 30 or 40 years, this town has been negligent in terms of addressing these matters. So now we're in the situation where we have to address it. Okay?
That's why we're calling it Democrat.
Let's address the present going forward, as opposed to relitigating the incompetence or lack of addressing it in the past. Mr. Serenium? Hi. You know, I heard you comparing a 400 to maybe 600 unit development against a 57 unit development. Yes, it is, because the portion that you're talking about, affordable housing, is a flex number from 100 to 200. But the total impact on the town is 4 to 6, 4 to 8. Big difference. You know, whether we have 400, well, the unit that Normandy Sylvan, whatever you want to call it, is 400, you said, in the best case scenario, right?
Right.
And you said 800 in the worst case scenario.
Correct.
Okay, all right. The other proposal that I heard is a total development of 57 units. Is that right?
57 plus 20, 77.
77.
Yeah, what's the risk?
You're telling us that the affordable end of the Normandy proposal is 100 on a best case, roughly 100 on a best case scenario, and it could be a lot more. Once we get to a 400 or 600 or 800 unit development, the whole thing doesn't matter. It's somewhat moot at that point. Going forward, even if you got the worst case scenario is 600 and you have 200 affordable housing, I keep hearing about overlays and future obligations, which are all speculative, by the way. It'll probably take care of that anyway. So really, we're in a win-lose situation here. And I've heard about, I don't know the other gentleman's name who did the cost analysis. Okay. You know, no, the evaluation I'm talking about. Who did this cool evaluation?
Powell.
Mr. Powell. I'm nationally published on evaluation from the legal and business sides. I can tell you for a fact that I can get 10 people in here and they'll value anything you want to show to support anything they want, high and low. We're thinking there was contradiction in your valuation methodology. But for instance, you're dependent on a census. I don't know if you've noticed, but the census has, by both parties, nationally, has been challenged on numerous occasions for its accuracy. And that's what you base it on. And it's based on a formula, which is put together by people who want to come to a different definite conclusion. So that valuation number, and the valuation number didn't take into account things like police, fire, DPW. Isn't that important to the total valuation issue? The cost to the town? And then I hear about, and I've gotten from various sides, well, litigation is expensive, and it's going to cost us this, this, and that. I agree with everybody that said litigation is expensive. What nobody seems to look at, though, is that if this goes through, you have in perpetuity all these expenses that I just outlined for you. Do you have a counter to that? Are you telling me that those expenses don't exist? Or that they won't have to go in perpetuity? Nobody's even addressed that if you build this, that the town has to get involved legally for zoning and everything else. So you're asking us to take a commercial piece of property and redo it as a residential property. And in terms of the legalese, Mr. Serenia, okay, I don't know if you did the litigation or not. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on Mount Laurel litigation. But I know through this state, I have this much experience, it can always be appealed if you get the right judge and the right attorney in the right circumstances. I'm more than happy to look at your analysis, not being an expert, and Mr. Powell's analysis, and I'm sure we'd have a very spirited discussion about all of that, because you've left so much out. Mr.
Thank you.
I'm raising points that I want to address, and I'm not getting anything addressed.
First of all, you haven't given a chance to anyone to address it. And secondly, you haven't given anyone a chance to address it. You just kept talking. And secondly,
You don't have the
I'm
floor.
getting the points out.
I understand.
Mr. Marinello, you don't have the floor.
I'm trying to help you.
Mr. Marinello, you
get
don't
your
have the
questions
floor.
answered.
All right, Mr.
I
Marinello.
don't need your
All right,
help.
then you don't have the floor, Mr. Marinello. Mr. Marinello, you don't have the floor. Okay, next person.
I was asking
Next person, yeah, we have to move on.
Yeah, you have to move on. You can't get your questions answered because the mayor won't let them get answered.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Page.
the,
No Democrat?
come on up.
This is why we needed a member system
So,
instead of you calling on individuals. This is very
I
important.
preside over meetings, you're welcome.
Right, and obviously not well.
This is how every mayor and council meeting
But
works.
you just may not like what you're hearing, but this is our, these are our citizens, our residents have a view.
315 Center Street, Green Six Zone.
Well, if they apply, then you'd be getting thrown out, so you can't be yelling at them, all right? All right. Robert's rules do apply. Okay, you don't have the floor, sir. You can raise your hand later. Yes,
He
sir.
doesn't like what you have to say.
315 Center Street, Green Six Zone. We heard all so-called expert presentation. But 400 to 800 unit is a mega scale. It's not the 1, 10, 20. Mega scale. Scale is so huge. And how our city council could proceed this kind of mega scale apartment complex development without having all town roads. I vote for some Democrat councilmen and women. I'm not talking about the politics. Number 2 question. Mega scale and is drastic. The speed is so fast. What I mean is 400 to 800 unit population is not building up for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. If, whatever reason, this development is digging out the ground, it will generate about 400 times 3 people is 1,200. 800 times 3 people is 2,400. Our existing current population is only 5,000. If we have a 30 to 40% population increase, it's a disaster. It's a disaster. It's a disaster. And state or federal cannot ask us to build up the 400 or 800 unit apartment complex in order to comply our compliance of fair housing, whatever, or low income, whatever, okay? The point is, we'd like to build up the as little as possible unit. We'd like to comply with only the fair housing, authorities, compliance, which is, if they say 100 low housings, we will build up 100 units. Not commercial, profitable, generated, residential unit. Okay, even 100 low-income affordable housing will increase approximately 300 population. 300 population, we can manage. We can manage. Because of 300 population school effect, we could manage it. Okay, so my point out is, number 1, the scale is too huge, and the speed will be so drastic. And then our city council proceeds this project. Behind the scene, it smells fish. Okay? Korean American councilmen and women. I am Korean American. All of them last year, they campaigned. They will convince the 800 Silver Normandy and to build up the office building. None of them complied their campaign